Hi, I'm Katie Cat, and this is our daily Astro Tarot. We have a few interesting and pretty powerful transits coming up this month, and so I am likely going to pick up my readings more than just being once a week. I'll be making a couple of them during the week. And I also would like to get some feedback from you guys, because the last reading that I did, I had shared a diagram of the star chart that we're all experiencing right now. And I'm curious if that was useful for you. I'm also curious if you would prefer that portion to be separate than the readings of the cards, or if you like having them combined together to give some context to what we're all working with by way of astrological influences right now. So this round, I'm going to jump into the diagram at the end and start with the cards in the beginning. Let me know if there's one way or another that's more useful for you as far as connecting the dots, because ultimately my aim in creating these videos is to help give people some perspective around the astrological transits and how they affect our daily lives. So first I'm going to jump into the cards today. Our opening card that we have is the Nine of Wands. The challenge that we are working with is the Two of Wands. The way that we're going to get through the challenge is showing up as the Nine of Cups. And then the ultimate outcome that we have for today is a combination of the Seven of Swords clarified by the Knight of Pentacles. So we have all of the elements on the table today, and surprisingly, no major arcana. So in a lot of ways, it's like there's a little bit of rumble of something that's about to happen, and we aren't sure what. But the astrological transits are telling. Now, we have a couple of nines showing up for our reading today, which is telling of some kind of completion. And anytime something gets completed, well, then there's new energies for something to be started and began. Now, the opening card that we had today is the Nine of Wands, which is signaling some kind of learning through past experiences and realizing what didn't work out. When we see the person in this card, they look a bit beat up. They have a bandage wrapped around their head, their pants have been scuffed up, and they look like they've been in quite a little rumble or tumble. And behind them are these upright 8 wands. Now, because we have 2 of the 5 cards today being in this suit of wands, it speaks to some kind of fiery energy. And to me, it's signaling what's going on with Mars right now. So there's many of us that are taking a stance back, consider that Mars is in retrograde right now, and reevaluating our lives and the amount of ground that we've been able to cover through our lives in our experiences with our goals in mind. This is a person who's deciding where they want to cut the slack and let go of something so that they can move forward into something new. Now, I say that because our challenge is coming up as the Two of Wands. There's some kind of indecisiveness. We're being pulled in another direction away from where we've been, and we're feeling that call. And part of that is because some of the places that we've put our energy and effort haven't bared us much fruit. And it's bringing that to our attention. So it's asking us, if you only have 24 hours a day, and, I'd actually point out you don't have 24 hours a day because you need to sleep and you need to eat. And if there's anything I've realized by moving to a more remote place and living in a cabin is that, conditions change and productivity changes, and you have to be aware of your environment and be sober to what you can actually accomplish, right? Because otherwise we can end up beating ourselves up with this stick because we didn't accomplish what we sought out to accomplish. So we're in this reevaluation stage, right? Consider that Mars is a fiery planet. Mars is the warrior. And so often we give this connotation to that word as being like super aggressive and angry. But if we look back throughout time, often, and more often than not, there is combat that happens when people are wanting to create peace or trying to create resolution from something. And Mars, being the planet of the warrior, is that energy that calls us to engage, that sparks us, that it motivates us to move toward a direction with a plan in mind. But it's in retrograde right now. So a lot of us are in this space of reevaluation and reconsideration of where we put our energy and effort, and if it is providing us a reciprocal output to what we're putting into it. Now, the way that we're getting through the challenge came through as the 9 of Cups. So this is another completion card, right? But it's around the area of nostalgia, right? And there may be something that you feel like you need to go back to complete right now. And I would actually encourage you to look at that rather than necessarily creating something entirely new, right? We have this 2 of Wands that preceded the 9 of Cups. And so it is telling that there's been something that's been sitting on the back burner for a length of time. And you're not willing to let go of it for a reason. There's something that you feel called to nurture that seed so that it actually can grow into something. But we're in this reevaluation place because we know that some places we've put our energy simply caused us a lot of pain, and we don't want to do that again, right? Well, the ultimate outcome that we have came through as the 7 of Swords, clarified by the Knight of Pentacles. So right now we are in this kind of quiet time, right? We are approaching the winter solstice. We are approaching the darkest night of the year, and it brings us to a place of quiet internally and evaluation. And as you look back on the last year, I actually encourage you to look back even further than that, because we've all been in this process since the beginning of 2020, where we've been reevaluating where we put our energy in life. And part of that has been largely because of the circumstances that have been going on in the global sphere. So this is bringing in this internal work. And it's interesting, you know, because when we consider that when the sun rises in the morning, all of the planets, for the most part, are in this internal sphere. And so there is a lot of energy and effort that's asking us to focus on that and look at that right now. Now, it's not necessarily the time to bring what you want to fruit out into the world, because it's not the right season for it. It's a time to actually take your ideas and go work on them, right? Set time aside to do that. And I say that because we have this 7 of Swords, and we see this person taking 5 of their swords into a new direction, and they're leaving behind these 2 swords in the background. So they're leaving behind the black and white nature of things. They're moving toward an idea that they want to feel, that they want to develop, and they feel called to bring to some kind of maturity. And the Knight of Pentacles is telling us to take our time, move slowly, move with determination, and have patience with ourselves. Now, when we look at what's going on astrologically and in the starscape and what's going on by way of astrological influences, we can see that some things are going to be revealed in a couple of days. Now, right now, we have the Sun in Sagittarius, along with Venus and Mercury. We have Pluto over in Capricorn, Saturn in Aquarius, Neptune and Jupiter over in Pisces, the Moon and Uranus over in Taurus, and then we have Mars over in Gemini. Now, what's interesting about Mars being over in Gemini is you'll see it's in 180-degree movement away from the sun. And then we also say that we have Neptune over here around the mid-degree of Pisces. It's around 20 degrees right now. And so there's this 3 anchored T-square that's happening right now astrologically by way of the Mars, the Sun, and Pisces. But in a couple of days, we'll have a full moon, and the moon, which is now in Taurus, kind of highlighting those things that we want to build, it's going to be in alignment with Mars in a couple of days when we have a full moon. And at that point, the moon is going to be in direct opposition to the sun, and it will be in this additional square relationship to Neptune. Now, we've had a lot of planets in retrograde this year, and many of them just moved out of retrograde in the last month. So we currently only have 2 planets in retrograde, which is Uranus over in Taurus and Mars up in Gemini. So when we consider the energies of those 2 planets being in retrograde, it's as if they have taken a step back and they're re-evaluating things. Like I had mentioned, Mars is this planet that is associated with being the warrior. So it's as if our inner warrior is observing the battlefield and is taking in information to figure out the best way to apply our energy and effort in life to manifest that which we want to bring into form during the coming year. And consider that Uranus being in retrograde has been a place where we've been evaluating all of the changes that have been happening in our lives and what has bore fruit and what hasn't. And in a lot of ways, it's forcing us to retie our sails of our ship so we can catch these winds of change to take us in a direction that we feel is in alignment with our being and where we feel called to be in life. Now, I ask you what it is that is calling you to that next space, because we've been conditioned to believe that the ultimate is, a pile of money and a partner and a family and a nice house and a nice car and all of these things that are of material nature, but there are also additional things that are of material nature that we value, that we're bringing into the realm right now to consider. Now, you've probably evaluated a lot of your life in the last couple of years, and that's largely because of because of Uranus over in Taurus, creating a lot of that change that's been happening in our lives and also in the global realm. Now, you may feel some indecision right now in regard to where to place your efforts in the coming year. And what I am putting on the table and encouraging you all to observe is what information comes in over the next couple of days. Because we will, for instance, have the moon transiting over Mars in retrograde. And so in a lot of ways, that full moon will be bringing a light to the direction that we feel called to move towards, and it will be very clear. It's like having a flashlight on things. And it can be made clear possibly by the circumstance that you are experiencing, right? Like sometimes a situation is so loud that you can't help but shift because you're forced to. And I think many of us are going to be experiencing that over the coming days. So consider that if you want to see where Mars is in a couple of days, or even tonight, being that it's Monday, when the sun is going up over into Zenith position, this is going to be noon. When the sun sets today, which will be right around 5 p.m., right? You likely won't see Venus very much because it's not very far from the sun. You might just in the very beginning twilight moments before, it gets dark because it's really close to the sun. But you will be able to see when the sun goes down, Jupiter right beyond Zenith position. And then you'll also be able to see Mars over in Gemini coming up upon the horizon. Tonight, the moon is going to be right around Uranus. You won't likely see Uranus because it's a bit too far away. But in a couple of days, the moon will have moved into Gemini. It'll be right around Mars. And so you can look up to the evening on Wednesday and Thursday and see Mars in close proximity to the full moon. Pretty cool, huh? Just make sure you face south and look to the east, and you'll be able to see it. Please let me know if it worked for you, that the diagrams were shown after the cards, or if you prefer the diagram be shown before the cards, or if you would prefer them to be separate videos all entirely, because I appreciate your feedback. I send you a lot of love. I hope you are well, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.